Hello again from Ethereum Sky, another unofficial video as we're trying to get through my pre-production for this upcoming Save a Fox NBC mini documentary. So in the last video we got through my little write-up, which is the very first a story write-up essentially to give you, or in this case give me, an idea of where my story is going. And in this second video we're going to create our A-Roll or interview or story questionnaire. So to do that, essentially what I'm gonna do is I opened up an old A-Roll questionnaire from another project that I did, which was quite similar to this Fox story in the format and in the style, and frankly in content as well. This was a story about the cow hugging therapy, which I shot also for NBC, I think a year ago in St. Louis in the US. But anyways, it also dealt with people rescuing animals and trying to help them. So that story has some parallels. But more importantly, I simply use this template because it's a template. I don't need to go through it filling in my all my formatting and so on. So let me just do some basics here. Save a Fox. Okay, and we're not with Ellie and Jay, we're with Michaela. Let me save this as a separate file before I mess this up and overwrite something. Save a Fox, interview questions 2 actually, because I've already recorded this video once, except forgot to hit record. So I'm doing this the second time. But that also means that I already know what I'm gonna write in these questions, because I've been through this once before. But since I promised to guide you guys through it, let's get this done correctly. Rains, I think that was her last name, right? Michaela Rains, yes. Not farm owners, but Save a Fox, owner, founder. All right, I'm gonna push these back down to the background. These are my old questions from the other story, from the other project. I'm just gonna use them as a guide. I was fairly comprehensive with this project, so I can compare the two later in case I forgot something that's key. Am I still recording? Okay, I'm still recording, good. I consider doing this video as a live stream, which, I mean, it has the format of a live stream, but the truth is that this whole like pre-production tutorial thing, it's a new thing that I'm just starting or trying out rather. So I'm not sure if enough of you guys would actually follow this video, and I figured that not many people revisit live streams after they've already streamed, so it just seems to make more sense to do it this way. But anyways, I've been yapping for a while. Let me just copy this format and I'll get started. All right, nope, not all right. It's not working. What did I do wrong? Let's copy this one by one. Nope, not there. Let's copy it here. Okay. So it's not going to be all personal backstory, but now let's see. So we can open my other document from before as well, which would be this write-up that we just completed with you guys. If you didn't see me complete it, you can jump back to that video. And essentially, if you have your write-up and you have this white blank document for your A-Roll questionnaire, you can follow my steps in my tutorial for doing this. But well, I'm doing this video to let you actually watch me work and watch me how I structure this. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna populate just these key story chunks, or these, no, they're not story chunks. They're key ideas for my interview, which I want. So I know that I will want a set of questions that deal with Michaela and her personal background. Then I know I want a backstory of Save a Fox. So Save a Fox backstory. Then I know, once I establish the backstory, I want to know more about the organization itself. Save a Fox about the organization. All right. Then I want to know about foxes, not necessarily foxes at their farm or their work with foxes, but I want to know about foxes. I want to learn more about those animals. So foxes, about the animals. La, 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 la. Or let's make this, no, never mind, okay. Ooh, nice sunlight coming in. Sunset light. It's been raining all day, and now sun's coming out for the sunset. Okay, so what's next? About the foxes, and then I want something about the rescue work. Rescue work, typical days and activities. I will need a bit about, I should talk about the fur farming because it's relevant to the story. There'll be just a few questions, but it's relevant to the story. So if I'm going to talk about a problem that she's solving, I should actually talk about what the problem is. I want to talk about the challenges and the future. And I want to talk. So Michaela, the girl who's running this fox rescue, she has quite a strong social media presence herself. Entrepreneurship. Did I spell this right? Is that how you spell that word? Yeah, she's quite active and she's quite strong on social media and uses that as part of her, I don't know, advertising marketing campaign. Funny enough, I'm sitting here on the Adriatic coast right now, out in Montenegro. I tend to come here whenever I need to focus and work on the computer for a couple months. And just a few days ago, I was talking to this one lady completely in a different context and mentioned this project to her, and she goes, "Oh yeah, like this girl who has a fox named Finnegan, and she's out there in the US like playing with foxes and saving foxes." And this random older lady out here in Montenegro knew very well who I'm talking about and who I'm going to be filming with because she watches Michaela's videos. So that's also relevant because this story, as much as it deals with foxes and with rescue with animals, it's also interesting because it's a modern way of doing so, you know. And there's this. I mean, it's not rocket science. Of course, social media is a part of running any business, like it or not. I personally hate it, but it is a part of running any business or doing any real work, really, not even a business nowadays. So it's interesting that, Michaela, at least from what it seems, has been able to make it work quite well for her. So I should ask her a couple questions on that. And well, for the ending, let's do something, let's call this the relevance. That's a very formal way to describe it, but essentially the so what of this story. Once we discuss everything, let's say why should we care, why should we Why should we connect with it? What is so special about this that gives this whole story its relevance? So, all right, so I have these sections here, more or less rough sections, and you might ask, okay, how did I come up with them? Did I just pull them out of my arm? But okay, so Michaela, personal story. I knew that that's gonna be a big part of my. I knew that I need to ask about that. I mean, when we start the video, it starts with her talking about her relationship with foxes. Then I need to talk to her about how she first got in contact with foxes, and that's this whole section. So naturally, I'm gonna have to ask her about her personal questions. From there, I have the backstory of Save a Fox. So it's this section right here. This section is where my questions are gonna go for this section right here. So this section will come right here. Then Save a Fox about the organization. This is gonna be those two sections right here. Again, it's not so black and white, but those are just kind of guidelines for me over here, based on what I wrote here in my write-up. So that's about the organization, and then rescue work and typical days and activities. This is essentially this whole section here, which deals with how they work and what they do every day. Then this section about foxes, the animals in general. That's essentially this section. Fur farming, I didn't talk about it as much in my early write-up, but this is actually something that I realized just after I finished my write-up, after I finished my last video, that I didn't really establish, or that I didn't really mention all that much about fur farming. It's not, I don't want to delve into it too deep in this story, because that's not the topic for this mini doc at least. But I need to establish that this is a problem, or whether this is a problem, and it is relevant to everything else in this mini doc, knowing that, hey, there could be hundreds or thousands, I don't actually know how many foxes being killed every single day purely for their fur, and that a lot of these animals are, I don't know, euthanized or thrown out or released or what, by those farms when their fur is not good enough, or when they are born with, I don't know, the wrong color, or some skin condition or something. So this is something that I should establish if I'm going to talk about her helping the situation and fixing this problem. I should establish this. So I should ask her at least a few questions about this. And this is, I realized this after I wrote the write-up, and you will often realize this afterwards. So this is not as much as it seems like a very step-by-step process, and it is to some extent, but there is also a lot of going back and forth. Oftentimes I'll finish my final document and then end up going back to the beginning because I just forgot, I don't know, this gave me some idea to add to here, to add to there, and it's like that. But again, the more pre-pro work you do, the better prepared you will be, because if I didn't realize this, if I didn't add this section and any questions about it, then there's a very good chance that right there on set while filming, this would come up. She would say something and I wouldn't know how to respond because I didn't expect that. Or worse yet, I would sit down to do my edit after I've already shot the project, and I would realize, damn it, I got my middle, I got my end of this story sequence, but I don't have any beginning because I haven't established in any way this problem and what this problem is. So I need to add that in. Okay, moving on. The challenges and the future. So this is kind of scattered throughout my whole write-up here, but the future will certainly be stuff that I will ask the questions for my outro here. This will be my future section, and the challenges, well, I also wrote that out here, like this stuff that I said about, asking about COVID and global challenges. I will also ask her about, finances, how she's funding that whole thing, because I'm sure there's some costs involved with caring for so many animals. And her social media entrepreneurship thing is the same as the fur farming. I also realized that after I finished the write-up, that I never really mentioned that in my early write-up, but and I'm not even sure, frankly, I'm not even sure if I will use that because it's a little bit outside of what my story focuses on, and within just such a short runtime, within just the restrictions of the format of this story, I might not have time, or just it might not make sense to stray off in the direction of discussing social media and entrepreneurship, but I prefer to ask a few questions on it and not need them and not use them, rather than the opposite, where I feel like, darn, I wish I asked this and I didn't, and now I don't have it. And finally, this relevance section is my very ending. Honestly, those two sections, this is where I would. Whoops, my battery exhausted. I will change that in a second. No, I have to change it now because otherwise I have no microphone. So one small interruption. Okay, we're back. So let's see. Have I covered all the sections from my write-up? Beginning. What is so great about foxes? Why we need them? Foxes are great because. So this will play more or less into Michaela's personal background, as well as the relevance. Michaela's background, I have a section in her personal background. Save a Fox, about the organization and about their work, that's here. Then step by step, their daily work, that would go under rescue work, typical days and activities, yes. Then the section about foxes in general, about the animals, exactly. These three, the vet's perspective, the adopter's perspective, and the community member who will probably be the teacher. These I will do separately because they are separate interviews. So for my A-Roll questionnaire, I'm building it per person, per speaker. So for now, I focus just on Michaela, and then outro talking about the future, that goes here, and Michaela's closing, that goes under the relevance. So yeah, I have all my sections, and now here's the deal. Depending on how much detail you went to in your write-up, what you would do right now is go really just sentence by sentence for each section, coming up with questions. And don't worry if you have 100 of them to start off with, you can condense later. But essentially, foxes are great because your question, why do you love foxes? And that would probably go under, I don't know, Michaela's personal background or under the relevance section. And then you go, I don't know, let's say Michaela's personal background here. I grew up in, then I ask, okay, tell me where you grew up. I first got into contact with foxes when I was 15 years old and have been asked to foster a fox. So my next question, tell me how you first came in contact with foxes, and so on. So let me start filling that in. And I do a lot of this work already in my head. I'm fairly familiar with those stories, and since I'm already contracted for this project, I'm not doing it on a spec. So, and I simply have enough experience so I can do that. But anyways, so let me just copy a couple of these just to have the format. Okay. Ignore the gentle barn. That's just to make my life a little bit easier. Nope. What's happening? Okay, so first question for talking about Michaela's background. Let me figure out what questions I want for her. So please introduce yourself. This is a question that I practically never ever use. I always ask it, and then I usually add some silly follow-up questions that I don't ever use and I don't ever plan on using, but it's just it helps me get the speaker a little bit more comfortable with me, with the camera, and it kind of gives me an idea of how they will answer. If they speak in a super long-winded way that never gets to the point, as I say that, I realize that maybe by the length of these videos you guys think that I'm one of those people, and maybe I am, I don't know. But if I see that the speaker, my interviewee, speaks this way, then I realize that I might need to change my line of questioning, like approach it differently, be much more specific in my questions. If I see that they speak very briefly, very to the point, and really answer barely more than yes or no answers, then I know that I should not skip any questions on my list, and I should ask every single one and break it up into the smallest parts so that I can actually get more out of them. So these first questions tend to be, or at least one first question tends to be just to establish things, and I don't need her introduction usually because I can put titles on screen, but it doesn't hurt. So please introduce yourself. Tell me your story. Where did you grow up? Did you have pets? I'm not sure actually if she did, but I think this is kind of relevant, and if I had to guess, I would imagine that she did have pets. How did you first get acquainted, is that the right way to spell it, with foxes? And I leave a note for myself. Fostered one at 15. This is she did get a fox when she was 15. That's how she first got connected with them. So I make a note so that in case she mentions something else, I can ask her to focus on this specific moment when she got this fox at 15. And I want to do that because I'm hoping that she might have some pictures of it, which she could give me, which lets me, add some more varied B-roll to my story. What's next? What was your experience like being a fox foster mom? How did that experience lead you to get further involved with foxes? What else should I ask? How did that experience lead you to where you are today? And what is it that most interests you about working with those animals? Does that more or less cover what I want from this section? Introduction, tell me your story, where did you grow up, how did you get acquainted with foxes, what was your experience like being a fox foster mom, how did you lead to get involved with foxes? What is it that most interests you about working with these animals? Okay, I'll leave it at that. And I'll move on to the next section. I can always come back and fill extra stuff if I think of extra stuff. I'm gonna stretch this up just a little bit because I could be using this write-up that I did here, and I should be using it, especially since that's what I'm encouraging you guys to do. But I simply already have these questions in my head and have a particular format that I'm working towards. So I know that I'm automatically taking things from here and moving them to here. But it's, yeah, but I'm sure you can follow. This is not rocket science. And if you can't, then obviously tell me, please. Maybe I am just being overly oblivious, and I promise if I'm really confusing everybody, I'll be happy to make another video and clarify anything that's not absolutely clear, although hopefully it will be. All right, so backstory of Save a Fox. These are just my template guides. Nope, I erased everything now. Stupid word. Okay, never mind. Okay, so where are we? Where is Save a Fox located? This is a question I like to ask, or I used to use it more early on some years ago. I don't use it that much anymore because I generally just put a title on screen. But I ask people where we are because this tends to go well with my establishing shots if I opt to use it. So somebody will tell me, for example, if somebody asks me where we are, I would say, right now we are here in Bar in Montenegro, and this is a coastal town on the Adriatic Sea coast. And it's a very small town surrounded by mountains, known for its ports, known for its coasts, and known for beautiful nature. And this really kind of verbally sets me up in a setting. If the setting is important to my story, then it's a nice thing to use. If the setting is not so important to my story, then I prefer to just put a little ticker box in the corner of my video, establishing, okay, Bar Montenegro or Faribault, Minnesota. I think that's the name of the town where I'm going to be filming this. Faribault, Fair something. Anyways. Let's get back to this. So where are we? Where is Save a Fox located? And one more big tip for your interviews, not for this, but for when you do your interviews, make absolutely sure that your characters give you complete sentences or that they restate your question. So if I ask my interviewee, what is your favorite color? If they just answer blue, then I have to hear my own voice in order to understand the context. And I don't want to use my narration, my own voice in those videos, in those stories. So essentially, if they answer to me, my favorite color is blue, then I need nothing else. It's a standalone sentence. I can use it in itself. So also with this question, where are we? If I just tell you in Montenegro, there's no context. You cannot use that chunk just on its own. So I really need to tell you, we are right now in Montenegro, and well, already this sentence you can use. It's usable without any other context. So anyways, you get the point. Let me move on. So where are we? Where is Save a Fox located? And to focus on the backstory, when did you first open your rescue? How many foxes did you start with? Where did those first animals come from? The condition, where are they in, and what needs did they have? How has your rescue changed since those early days until today? How many animals do you have today? Are you still in the same space as in the early days? And she, from what I remember, she expanded to other locations, so I'll just make a note on that to ask her on this. She expanded, has couple other locations. And that should that be enough for my backstory? So where are we? Where's Save a Fox? When did you first open your rescue? Okay, she'll tell me that. And with a lot of these questions, like I use, if you're starting off, be as detailed as possible with your questions, but it often happens, especially with good interviewees, it often happens that I will ask, let's say, where are we, where's Save a Fox, and she will end up answering the first 4 questions in one go. She'll tell me, we are here at Save a Fox, and I first opened this rescue back in this and this year. I started this many foxes, and today we have this and this many and this much staff, and she ends up answering 7 other questions on my list. So so throughout my interview, I keep following my paperwork and seeing, okay, what did I address, what did I not address. I'm editing in my head already, so if she says something that I'm like, wow, that's a great bit where I can open with or that I can close with, then I'm already making a mental note of it. And one other thing, like sometimes, like for example, when did you open your first rescue? I could ask that, and she could answer something that begs another question that I didn't write out. You know, maybe there was a particular challenge, or maybe her first rescue was actually in her own garden, and it was technically a rescue, but in practice it was just her own garden, and then I could ask her a bunch of extra questions on that. So these are guides, and it's important that my guides are thorough, because on set, if I have those guides, then I know that I haven't missed anything. I know that I will have my story fully covered. But they are guides. So where are we? Where's Save a Fox? When did you first open your rescue? How many foxes did you start with? Where did those first animals come from? What condition were they in, and what needs did they have? How has your rescue changed since those early days until today? How many animals do you have today? Are you still in the same place as in the early days? Okay, let's move on to the next section. I think I'm good with this for now. I keep playing with my phone because I have a lot of my notes here, since I already shot this video once before and didn't press the damn record button. Still bitter about that. Okay, about the organization. So let's talk about, nope, not bold. What is Save a Fox? And you know, this is a question that I ask in a kind of an open-ended way. I like asking questions this way, but it depends on a speaker, because some people will panic and they won't know what to say if you ask them a question that's too broad, or they will know what to say, but they will talk so broadly that they lack focus, and then it's not particularly useful to me. But I like to ask those open-ended questions, because they tend to be more imaginative, and especially when you're talking with people who are actually imaginative, they might often give you some pretty unique, pretty colorful answers, which I'm always very much hoping for. So, is it a petting zoo? And from what I know, it is not. And there's a reason why sometimes I ask questions like this quite directly, because I want to film her reaction. I mean, yeah, the answer I care about, that this is not just a petting zoo, but it's the reaction that I want. You know, it doesn't. Sometimes I'll ask a question that at the surface might seem quite ignorant, like I haven't done my research and I don't know the basic facts, which I do. I know it's not a petting zoo, but I want that reaction. I want to see how she will respond, how she will react, and then what she will answer. Do you offer tours, visits? What's the usual response like? And with this question, I might have to rephrase it a little bit later on for this particular story, but with similar projects, what I tend to do is I ask this question because I know that I can use it later as a transition to another speaker. So for example, if at some point she tells me, yeah, and with our organization, we have many tours and we open up our rescue to local school visits, for example. And then that becomes a very easy, or very, not easy, but very logical story transition from this point to now let me cut to a school teacher who's hopefully one of my other interviewees, who tells me like, yeah, there was this community event we went to and I brought my students and they could learn about foxes. So, so knowing my story, knowing what I'll be filming, sometimes I purposely put in questions like this just to kind of build in this potential natural story transition. What's the response like? What is unique about Save a Fox? This is more or less like the same question, like the first question. I might end up combining the two actually, but there is this key difference, because what I want her to tell me is I want her to tell me we are not doing what everybody else is doing. We are different, and this is how we are different. Because if they're gonna just tell me a story that literally a million other people could tell me, then this is not a story necessarily, this is not necessarily a very interesting story. And it doesn't mean that the story isn't interesting, it just means that it isn't told in an interesting way. So there could be a million rescue places working with animals, but what is this personal connection? What is this personal unique thing that, okay, you know, we are different because we do this, we are different because we do this, or we are different because we think this. Yeah, it's an interesting question to ask. Okay, moving on. Are there many other such organizations in US or elsewhere? How big is your space? How many animals do you keep? I think I already asked this or answered this before somewhere, but let me keep it there. I'll go through it once I'm finished. Okay, that's enough for me. Let's move on to the next section and let's talk about foxes, about the species, about the animals a little bit more generally. Or actually, let's wait, I think I'll make a small change. So let me change this section to about Save a Fox animals, and here I'll explain in a second. So I will ask a couple questions about their animals specifically, and then I will broaden it up and ask about foxes more general. So about Save a Fox foxes. How do you come up with names for your foxes? And tell me about their distinct personalities. Anything else? Yeah, okay, let's leave this at that. I don't know, there's gonna be more, but there should be more, but maybe it's enough. Okay, and now let's jump to this more general section to talk more generally about foxes. And here I want to ask things like, most people are familiar with cats or dogs and their ways. How would you define foxes? In other words, are foxes the same or different than cats and dogs? Talk to me about the way of life of those animals. Do they live alone or in packs? What do foxes normally eat? And I should also talk about preservation. Wait, let's talk about this here. So I should also ask, how many foxes still live in the wild? What challenges do fox populations face in the modern world? I think this one could be, yeah, these are relevant. Okay. But yeah, so you see, I think I've established the difference here. So first of all, I wanted to talk about their foxes on the farm, that, okay, you know, this is Fluffy Finnegan, this is, you know, Curious George, whatever. But in fact, in the wild, foxes are not as I don't know, open or outgoing or familiar. They might behave differently, blah, blah, blah. I don't know, I'm making that up, but that's essentially the distinction. We kind of, and we get a natural transition that we start talking about the foxes that we're seeing there, and that lets us approach a broader topic of animal preservation, animal welfare, and so on. So, all right, next. Rescue work and typical days at Save a Fox. Let me make sure I'm still recording. Test, test, test. Okay, mic is working. Oh no, okay, one of my cameras died, so you haven't been seeing my screen. What a shame. What a shame. I don't know how or why that happened, but well, from now you're seeing my screen. And this camera, you were seeing my screen at least, so well, not all is lost. I don't have to start over. I'm relieved with that. I don't know why that's happening though. Okay, well, at least you... Okay, I can still make that. I can still make that work, I hope. I'm not recording a third time. I'm done. I have to check more often if things are happening. Okay, let's continue with rescue work. So here are some questions I will ask. Let's get rid of this one. We're still good, right? Okay. So about their work. Is caring for foxes... No, wait, didn't I just do that? I think I doubled up a question, but... Okay, let me write this down. I'll clean it up after. So is caring for foxes different from cats or dogs? How so? Is caring for foxes easy? I guess it's not. Can your rescued animals be released into the wild? And I know from talking to them that they actually cannot, because most of them grew up in captivity and simply would not make it on their own. And then guide me through a typical day at Save a Fox. And with this one, what I'm really looking for is just a structured, quick recap of a typical day. At 9 a.m. we do this, at noon we do this, once a week we do this, we close the enclosures at this time, and we feed them at this time. I like to do it this way because that lets me build a quick visual sequence. So if I have even just 2 or 3 bits of information where they tell me specific tasks, that gives me an idea. Okay, I need to film feeding in the morning, I need to film playtime in the day, I need to film a medical examination of the foxes, and I need to film them turning off the lights. Okay, this gives me several sequences. Now I know that I need to build parts of my project or my whole project around them. So like, for example, wait, not here. What happened? Am I still recording? Bandicam, are you working? Okay, all good. I.e. We start the day by feeding the foxes at X a.m. I don't know, 9 a.m., 8 a.m., whatever. They play until noon when we let them out to roam around. By 2 p.m. we gather them back to the enclosures. Once a week we get a vet visit and they have dinner by 9 p.m. Sometimes we also have volunteers who stop by to play with the animals. I don't know. This is all made up. This is not like has nothing to do with, well, nothing to do with true. Is also not true. But I'm just making this sentence up. This is just a guide for me, a reminder of what I'm asked, what I want to gain from this question, what I want to get from this question. Okay, next. What is next? How does Save a Fox get involved with the local community? Where do your animals come from? Did I ask that already? I think I did, but no problem. I will go through that at the end to clean up, condense, and get rid of duplicates. Fur farming. Okay, what do I want to ask about fur farming? Let's not dwell on this, but let's ask just a few basic things. What is your relationship with the local fur farms? And that's a relevant question because from what I understand, Michaela actually has quite a decent relationship with the fur farms, which seems like a pragmatic and good thing because a lot of those fur farms will, I don't know, euthanize, kill, or just get rid of animals that are born and maybe have a defect, some skin defect or something. Their fur is unusable to them and they need to get rid of this animal. So Michaela ends up, by having good relations with those facilities, they end up calling her and she can help those animals, as opposed to those animals end up perhaps getting killed. But at the same time, of course, it could be an interesting relationship. So I want to ask about that. Then, are animal furs still commonly made, sold, or bought? And that's also interesting because I pretty much, I don't know. I mean, I guess I'm a bit more progressive than maybe some people, but I can't think of a single person I know or met in a long time who would actually even consider buying animal furs. So I don't know, I tend to forget that that's even a thing, but yeah, good question to ask. I want to also hear her personal perspective on that. So how does that make you feel? And do you see fur farms as evil, unethical? Why not? Okay, still recording. I'm good. Wow, now you're recording. Why was it cutting off before? I don't know. Okay, let's look at our challenges in the future. What has been your biggest challenge with Save a Fox? How have you worked to overcome it? Has COVID and recent global instability had an effect on Save a Fox? Uncertainties in the world. How do you see your future, the future of Save a Fox? Yeah, I think that's pretty self-explanatory about challenges in the future. I asked more or less what I was going to ask here. How's your work been affected by recent global instability? So I already covered it in challenges. Local challenges. Have you worked? What are your future hopes? Oh, I want to ask this. What are your future hopes, goals, and dreams? What are your future hopes, goals, dreams? What future do you hope for? Oh, those two imagination questions, I like those. What future do you hope for, imagine for each of your foxes? Is that future realistic? And how can we as people and communities work to make that future happen? Yeah, I think this covers it fairly well. Okay, social media entrepreneurship. I will need to change the order of those questions because it's kind of illogical, but what did I want to ask on this? So something like this. You have a very strong online presence, YouTube videos. Has being a social media personality helped you in your work with Save a Fox? How so? And secondly, more general, how can small business or small organization owners learn from you and improve their work with the use of online video and social media? Honestly, I don't think that's a relevant question. This is going to be one of those questions that's like at the very end, if I have time, if I feel like it, I will ask, but even as I write it, I have a feeling that it's relevant. It could be interesting, but it's a different story. It's not the core of what I want to talk about here. But that also might be something that I simply put in as a title card somewhere. Like let's say a title somewhere towards the end that says, Michaela has struggled with getting enough exposure for her rescue. However, she's been able to overcome this issue by continuing to make online videos showing her foxes to the outer world or something like that. So, okay, last part on the relevance. What most appeals to you about foxes? I think also I asked something like this before. What lessons can foxes teach us humans? I like that one. And when more generally, what is the value in connecting with animals overall? And wait, did I already ask these? What lessons can foxes teach humans? What lessons have foxes taught you? Yeah, I think I'm good here. Yeah, I think I'm good here actually. All right, before I wrap this up, so let me go, I'm just gonna go through my questions because as you remember, this was a template from this other project. So I'm just gonna compare and see that I haven't missed any central big ideas, just compared to the other one. Please introduce yourself. Okay, so this is covered. Animal therapy, this is not a point, this is not relevant to this story. The trends, this was also something different, so I'm down to significance. Yeah, I covered everything. So now the only other thing will be this. I still need to do my A-roll for 1 second. So this visitor section, let's get this done. Let's get this done. Let's get this done. Okay, so I finished my A-Roll questionnaire for Michaela, for my key speaker. But this is not my only interview because, as I mentioned here in this general write-up, like there will be, wait, where was it? Yeah, it's here. Like I will have this veterinarian, I will have this lady who adopted a fox, and I will have a community member, probably a teacher. So I also want to list some of those questions that I need to ask them. But for those questions, since those are not full interviews, the project is just too short. Those are much, they're much quicker and much simpler. So I won't even divide it into any sections. I will just list the questions right there because it's not even, I call them mini interviews because they're more hands-on. I just ask them questions as they're interacting with the animals. That's more or less it, and I want to know what to ask. So let's see, with the veterinarian. What would I... So honestly, there'll just be 3 things here, and that's straight from here, what we did in our write-up. I will ask, can you talk to me about the health conditions of foxes at Save a Fox? Fox, no, okay, that's general. When the foxes, please compare the foxes' condition when they first arrive there and after they already lived there for some time. Oh, that's such a strange way to formulate this question. Okay, and wait, let's rephrase this. Hello? Yeah. Sorry, I just keep checking my microphone under because I know my battery is running low on it, and I'm paranoid now after I lost the video twice already. So I do keep checking. But all right, so let's rephrase this. Can you tag? How healthy or not have most of the foxes been when they first arrive at Save a Fox? Okay, that's a bit, that question sounds a bit more better. I don't know, more better. How quickly and in what ways? No, not in what ways. How quickly have you seen? No. How have you seen the animals' condition change over their time at Save a Fox? Okay, finally, that's the right way to ask this, I guess. And I'll add another one that just popped in my head. Have any of the foxes faced unique problems that needed novel solutions. I don't know, I might have to rephrase this question, and I need to talk to them a little bit more. What I'm thinking about is that maybe there was just one particular fox or a few that had a very particular problem. I don't know, got hit by a car, or been severely abused and scared. Something that wasn't just a typical case that could make for an interesting anecdote, especially if they happen to have some video of this animal, and when we can see this scared, traumatized animal and then how it benefited from being at Save a Fox and from the healthcare. This could be helpful. Okay, next, how does your community benefit from the work Save a Fox is doing? And just one more question also popped in my head, and did I lose it? Is caring for wild foxes different than captive bred foxes? I asked this because working with some other animal rescue organizations before, I realized something interesting, that some of those animals at fur farms or at any farms, in fact, they're fed so much like unnatural crap to make them grow and develop in a very specific way that sometimes those animals end up being larger or stranger than any animal living in the wild. Like, think of a chicken which is fed antibiotics. You could rescue it from the farm, but within 3 weeks that chicken is going to be 3 times the size that it would ever reach as an adult chicken in natural conditions. So when you bring him to a vet, they might not have a way they might not even know how to treat this animal because because those animals don't live longer than a few weeks usually. And I've had stories, I've dealt with people who told me just very much that. So anyways, it could be interesting to ask on that. And finally, why is it important to care for animals? And I think that's enough. In fact, that's more than enough of what I want to ask the veterinarian. Let me ask the adopter. And this is again going to be just a few questions, like the same like the other section. So I'm just going to copy this from here actually. What was your first connection to foxes? How did you get connected with Save a Fox? What led you to adopt your own fox? How is raising foxes different than cats or dogs? I know I asked this question above, I think twice actually already, but in this case I like to ask sometimes the same question, especially if it's something like this, a somewhat lighthearted question, to more than one person. Just because they might have a different take on it, and sometimes I might be able to edit them speaking together. One person gives me one sentence, another person gives me another sentence. It builds a kind of a creative sequence sometimes. Cats and dogs. What's the experience like caring for a fox? Talk to me about starting your own rescue. What led you to open your own rescue? Talk to me about the challenges you face. I'm repeating myself, aren't I? Talk to me about your collaboration with Save a Fox. All right, I'll leave it at that. I'll go through it again once I'm done just to fine tune. And then let's say the teacher. The final one, teacher, no, ta'acher, teacher, okay. how did you first hear about Save a Fox? How does Save a Fox get involved with your local community? This phone just won't start beeping. How did you first hear about Save a Fox? How does Save a Fox get involved with your local community? And my goal here, my goal with this is for them to tell me about this first community event when I don't remember if it was that the school group came to the fox rescue or the fox rescue brought some foxes to the school. One way or the other, it was this event. So I'm asking this question and hoping for that answer, that she'll talk about that. And in some cases, I would tell them specifically, I want you to tell me about this specific event. But generally, I don't like to do that. I don't want to put ideas or put thoughts into people's mouths because the answers I get are more genuine and more interesting if I don't. And this is a question that's going to result in hopefully the same answer anyways. So how did you first hear about Save a Fox? How does Save a Fox get involved with your local community? What did you gain from the school fox visit experience? How did your students react to meeting foxes? What did you and your students learn from this experience? Yeah, and I think that's pretty good. Let me see what I asked here, but this was again a slightly bit different story. Okay, so let's add this. And let's add this to all of them. Please introduce yourself. Again, I almost never use that, but I almost always ask that. And in case of these short interviews, it's more important actually because sometimes I'm not in regular contact with those people and they're quick interviews, so I might miss their name and then I don't know what to put on screen, so it's better that I ask them. And what was this question? What was the value? Let me add this to veterinarian. What value? What is the importance of connecting with animals? It's a bit of an awkward question, but that's what I want. And I would ask all three of them, actually. It's the same that I asked Michaela up above, but yeah. Okay. And I think that should be just about it. All right, I'm worn out. This has been hours and hours repeatedly doing this twice. All right, so let's see. Now the final steps, we're pretty much done with this. I will go through this and just condense, and then the last thing is I will just mark for myself the most and the least important things. And honestly, just to clarify, I don't usually spend nearly as much time on this. I mean, I get this done faster because I don't go yapping over it, but I get nervous with having 3 cameras around me. If I wanted to be on camera, I would have become an actor. There's a very good reason why I tend to stay behind the camera, but if hopefully you find some value in following my work, then you know, I'm happy to help. All right, I gotta go through this and see if I doubled up or if I can condense or add anything else. Please introduce yourself. What is how do you get involved with the local community? I will add this because this might be a necessary connection to some of the other topics and other speakers. And one thing I will do is I will move this up here. This is a more sensical order for me to approach this in. So I start the interview with Michaela's personal questions that deal with her. Generally, she might have an easier time. I mean, I don't know. I will change that on the spot if I need to. But these are easy enough questions where she can just talk about her past and then talk about her organization after. That makes sense. And then we'll dive into the backstory. So we can introduce her, introduce the organization, and then take a flashback to the beginning. Yeah, that makes more sense. Where are we? Where is Save Fox located? When did you first open your rescue? How many foxes did you start with? How's your rescue changed since those early days until today? How many animals do you have today? What conditions? Where they at? What did they have? How many animals do you have today? Are you still in the same space? How do you come up with the names for the foxes? Tell me about the distinctive personalities. I'm gonna move this down here. It makes more sense. And this should be the first one, in fact. How many animals do you have today? How do you come up with the names? Tell me about the distinct personalities. Okay. Oops, my memory card is almost full. Most people are familiar with cats or dogs and their ways. How did you define foxes? Talk to me about their ways. Most people are familiar with cats or dogs and their ways. How would you define foxes? Talk to me about the way of life of those animals. Do they live alone? What the fox is normally. So I will actually keep this question about cats and dogs in both places because it asks it in different context. On the spot in my interview, I might only ask it once, probably will in fact, but I will keep them both here to make sure that I cover kind of both angles. Scaring for foxes easy. I already asked this somewhere up above. So I can erase that because I asked this up above. Where do your animals come from? Fur farming. What is your relationship with local fur farms? As individuals and communities work to make that future happen. I have to move this to some more sensical spot. And that spot would be where? I don't know, let's put this here. It's not perfect, but it'll do. What most appeals to you? Please introduce yourself. Novel healthcare. How does your community benefit from the work that Fox is doing? Scanning the wild fox, captive bred foxes, what is the value in connecting with us? Please introduce it. And the teacher, please. Okay, I think this is pretty solid actually. It's all there. It's blinking that I'm out of memory, but it's still going. I think it's recording to another card now. Okay. My camera's still on, all good. My microphone still has battery. I'm quickly running out, but all right. So last step, let me close this. I don't need this anymore. I've pretty much took everything from here and moved it into questions. I more or less organized this in the order that I will conduct my interview in. Then I have my 3 secondary interviews down there. So the last thing I have to do, or I want to do, is to highlight my most important questions without which I will have no story, and also the least important questions. So let's go through the key stuff and highlight the key questions. So I want her to tell me about her first fox that she adopted. I want her to tell me how she went from having this first fox to opening her center and to working with foxes today. I want her to describe Save a Fox. I want her to talk about this connection between other pets. I want her to talk about challenges of foxes in the wild. I do want her to certainly guide me through a typical day at their rescue. I do want her to state that animals can't be released. I want her to talk about her relationship with the farms. I want to ask those future questions. And how many is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I need something over here more. So I mean those small questions, but I will address this anyways. Let's highlight that those are just to be titles on screen really, but okay. Where are we? Where's Save Fox? When did you first open? Yeah, that's relevant. Yeah, I'm not gonna do that for the. I don't generally highlight questions for my secondary interviews because those are secondary interviews and I generally approach them a bit differently. It's more that I'm trying to figure out the activities that we're doing. I try to have them talk me through it, and half the time the questions I ask end up being actually more spontaneous than what I planned, but perhaps more fitting to the activities that I plan. So these are a good guide, but I mean, and this is only a few. I can do this on the spot as opposed to having 3 pages of questions for Michaela, which yeah, it's already too much. So okay, the lower important stuff. Please introduce yourselves. This is actually not that important. Also this, I think, because I'm not sure that having visitors is a central part of their business. Oh, I want to know this too. That's in green because I want to know if there are other places like them. These are not that relevant since I don't want to dwell on the topic of fur farms. It's more to mention it, that's all. And the social media ones, this one is definitely going to be a gray. The COVID question, although useful, but it's also gray. And if I had to choose of these 4 questions, then the first one is least important. And well, I think that's it. I think I'm good. Let's see, can I squeeze this onto less pages, less paper? Yeah, just one short. Okay, let's do like this. Okay, it works. So let me put a break here. Okay. And all right, and I think we are done. So thank you guys for sticking through it with me. Yeah, here's my A-Roll questionnaire already. If you had any questions throughout this process, please leave them down below in the comments. I'll be happy to comment, and please come back in a couple of weeks to check out the final project once it's done. I'm also going to record another video because I still, of course, have to do my script and have to do my shot list and schedule, but I think I'll leave that for tomorrow at least because I'm losing my throat slowly. Anyways, thanks for tuning in, as always, for a lot more pre-production advice and for a lot of cool little documentary fiction and video projects. Browse through my YouTube and check out ethereumsky.com. Thanks a lot, and till next time.